Hi everyone, it's Ben Putley, CEO of Alkimi Exchange here, and I'm quite excited about this one. We have got the V2 of our MVP to demo for you here today. Chandru and his team have been supremely busy since we last demoed this, I think probably 5 months ago. So I'm really excited for Chandru to take you through all the updates we've made, where that puts us on our roadmap, and kind of what it means for the roadmap moving forward. So I think without further ado, I'm going to throw this over to you, Chandru, and you can take us away.
Thanks, Ben. Hello, everybody, and we're really excited to be presenting to you the tech demo, the V2, as we call it, of the Alkimi Exchange tech demo. So what we'll be looking at today is we'll have a quick recap of the advertising flow. We'll look at our design goals, and then I'll take you through the Alkimi Exchange demonstration itself. So just to talk about a quick recap of the advertising ecosystem. Anybody who's been involved with Alkimi, who's seen the last demo, will be aware of this. But just to provide a quick recap, there is the user who would visit a publisher's website, and the publisher would then surface that user to the Alkimi Exchange, to any advertising exchange, by sending a bid request to the exchange. And the exchange would then send that bid request to any of the DSPs or the demand side platforms that are registered with the exchange, collect responses from each of these DSPs, conduct an auction, and provide the best response, that's the highest bidder, to the publisher, who would then display an ad corresponding to the one from the winning DSP to the user. So this is generally how the flow works in the advertising ecosystem. Guys, do you want to add to that? Anything that you want to?
Well, I can see there, point 4, something for nothing simulation is going to be very exciting, because we've had a lot of conversations with publishers this week and last week. So yeah, we really are putting some rubber on the tarmac as far as going to market is concerned. And yeah, this demo will show you exactly how it's going to work, which is very exciting. So for those of you that may have missed the announcement that we had at ATS, I think it was November last year, we're at the Velodrome in Stratford, and we announced to hundreds of publishers, definitely tens, the go-to-market strategy for Alkimi Exchange, which is something for nothing. So something for nothing is essentially us paying publishers not to show ads. And the reason we're able to do that is because of the generative economics that's built into the Constellation ecosystem, whereby when we validate an ad impression as such, it emits a reward, and we're able to pay publishers for allowing us to access their impressions with that reward. What that means is that, in my experience working for traditional exchanges, there was always an issue where you had more supply than demand, or you had more demand than supply. So what we're looking to do here is slowly build out supply with a something for nothing program, to then allow us to start speaking to advertisers and say, look, we have significant scale across a number of different user sets, which means that when you use Alkimi Exchange, you will be able to scale your campaigns, getting us out of that chicken and egg situation that can exist with exchanges when you have more of one side than the other side. So it's hugely important in us reaching adoption and becoming ubiquitous in the ad market, and also, yeah, has excited a lot of the publishers that we've spoken to, who are just keen to have fewer intermediaries selling their ads, to speed up ad load time and just really improve the experience of users that visit their website, because there will now be fewer ads on page because of the something for nothing program. So yeah, it's a huge part of the go-to-market strategy, and I'm over the moon that the work that Chandru and his team has done has allowed us to kind of progress on track with our roadmap and start the process of onboarding supply with some of the best publishers in the world, frankly.
Absolutely, that's the intention. You know, when I think about this, Ben, you know, the 3 main categories when any solution goes to market. One is, what is the current features that are being supplied by players in the market? And, you know, any new solution should not regress on those features. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two for me would be, what are the problems with the current infrastructure, the current solutions in the market, and how can this new solution actually remedy those solutions?
Yeah.
That is number two. And number three for me is, what is it that we can add on top of resolving all the problems? Is there something that can be delivered as part of a product that none of the players in the market are actually thinking about? And these are some of the things that Alkimi Exchange will definitely address.
I'm excited, mate. Great.
So we'll take a quick look at the advertising flow. Just to provide a recap of the advertising ecosystem, there are four main components or four main players in the advertising ecosystem. The first one is, of course, the user who views the ads as part of their browsing experience. Number two is the publisher who hosts the website, and that provides the ability for the user to actually view those ads and the content. The third player in the system is the DSP, or the demand side platform, or the advertisers. And they are the people who actually show their ads to the users. And number four is the advertising exchange, which makes all of this possible. And that is where Alkimi Exchange comes into play.
And I think probably what's important to state is that, just to your explanation there, each individual party is as important as the other. There is no cookie to target without the user. There's no way of surfacing that cookie without the website. And then there's no way of the publisher kind of creating any monetization without the advertiser itself. And I think today the user is often forgotten. So yeah, I think it's important to state that, and that we are really trying to address that imbalance to have every participant be as valued as each other participant within the value chain.
Absolutely. This picture actually depicts just that. We've got the user who visits the publisher's webpage, and the publisher would send a bid request to one or more exchanges, Alkimi being one of them. And Alkimi Ad Exchange would then forward that bid request to multiple bidders or DSPs, the demand side platforms, collect the responses from each of these bidders, determine the bidder with the highest bid response who would win the auction, and that response is sent back to the publisher to show the ad corresponding to the winning bidder to the user. So this is generally how the flow works. Now, there are two ways in which publishers can actually integrate with this system. The first is what we refer to as the client-side auction, where the first level of auction is conducted by Alkimi Exchange by determining which one of these bidders actually provided the highest bid, and that response is sent to the publisher. Now, there's a second level of auction that is conducted by the publisher, and this is on the client's PC, so to say. So if the user is browsing that website on their laptop, the second level of auction is conducted at the client side, where there are multiple responses from each of the exchanges, and a second level auction is conducted to determine which one of these responses actually won the bid, and that corresponding ad is shown to the user. So this is what we refer to as the client-side auction, which is the first way in which publishers can actually integrate with the ad exchange. And this is legacy. So this is one of the ways that Alkimi Exchange actually supports. So the publishers would have to change nothing as far as their integration is concerned.
And also, I think, as a kind of a brief history on pre-bid and why it came to be, is a lot of publishers use Google's ad server to manage all of the trafficking of ad units on their website, to manage the campaigns that they sell directly, and then also determine which of these bidders ultimately wins that auction. The reason that exists is because Google were favoring their own campaigns, their own bids. So publishers created prebid.js, which allowed them to override the settings that existed in Google's ad server to allow them to earn more money and more revenue from other partners that perhaps weren't winning auctions because of the algorithms that were being applied by Google's ad server to a publisher's page.
Exactly. And there's a second level of integration that publishers generally use, which is using the pre-bid server, where the second level of auction is conducted by a server called the pre-bid server and not on the client side. So what Alkimi has done is we support both these types of integrations. So as far as the publishers are concerned, there's literally no change to the way in which they integrate with the ad exchange. So it is a seamless integration process for publishers. Now we look at, so we were talking about the three categories initially when we started. And the first category is to support all the features that legacy systems do. And this is one example where we support both types of integrations to show that whatever the publishers and the DSPs are currently experiencing in terms of features and integrations is already supported by Alkimi Exchange. So there's no change, no regression, so to say, from the features that are currently supported. Now, moving to the second category that we were talking about, we look at the problems with the legacy solutions and how we can actually remedy those solutions, those problems. So the first problem, the biggest problem with the current advertising ecosystem is the lack of transparency. And do you want to?
Yeah, it's actually, it's unbelievable when you really dive into it with the amount of money that's traded and just the difficulty in aggregating that across any number of partners that you might work with. And there's actually a great extension that you can add to your Google Chrome browser called Header Bidder Expert. So if you want to have an idea of how many partners a website might be working on, add that to your browser, it will run, and then you can see all of the bidders that are actually using pre-bid to access that particular publisher's page. They all have different reporting systems, they report on spend differently, so the publisher is left at the end of every month trying to aggregate all of that to the best of their ability to determine how much money they've made. The same is true on the advertiser side, where it's very difficult for an advertiser to actually physically see where their ad was displayed. So that not only bakes in some cost through just discrepancies in reporting, but also there's a lot of time that's spent actually reconciling these reports. And what will quite often happen is that the last week of the month is dedicated to reconciliation, and it's just a case of at the end of the week, the answer they have at the end of the week is the answer they have to go with because the new month starts, and they haven't got a choice to continue working on the previous month to get to the bottom of the problem. They just have to roll on to the next month to ensure they can continue to earn revenue. So by shining a light on that reporting and showing people actually what happens, not only will they save money and determine where money's being lost through the ad tech tax, but actually they're going to get a lot of time back. If they have to check one login, so check the Alkimi login to see the reporting for all of their revenue across all of their ad units, that will save them at least a week every month, which is 12 weeks over a year, which is 3 months or an entire quarter of reporting that will disappear. And who knows what they might do with that time. They may create better ad units. They may be able to look at that laundry list of UX improvements they need to make, they never have time to do. The legal team has more time because they're not looking at contracts from these intermediaries they work with. It really will not only save publishers money from viewing the reporting for the first time, but actually also save them a lot of time, which is money as a publisher because your employees are doing more high value activities more often.
And it's interesting as well, there's another punitive thing that happens, which means that an advertiser can end up bidding against themselves for the same piece of inventory because there's somebody else buying it and selling it on, which is obviously bad for the advertiser and means that they're not really getting their.
Absolutely. So much of hidden costs and the value is not being transferred from the advertisers to the publishers. So it's all the intermediaries that are actually eating up all of this this ad budget, which is referred to as the ad tech tax, really.
And I think it's probably, we should state that it's not nefarious. These software providers and ad tech providers that take this tax, I think a lot of it is down to the cost of running their business through cloud infrastructure. So again, at Alkimi, because we have the ads token, which is providing specific bandwidth for ad transactions to take place, we're actually able to reduce the reliance on centralized servers, bring back some of the costs to these ad tech providers. And what we hope is that large exchanges will migrate to a state channel to afford these savings on their own business, and the ad tech tax will reduce across the entire industry, because people aren't paying tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars to run their auctions through cloud infrastructure providers.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the point of high transaction fees. The amount of fees that are being paid by the advertisers is just atrocious. Add to that the lack of auditability. You already spoke about the lack of instant reconciliation, and also transactional capacity. With the use of hypergraph now, we have literally infinite capacity. We can horizontally scale as much as we want in order to support the kind of bandwidth that the publishers would need.
And I think if you think about that in terms of like protocols and applications, I think the HTTP protocol is great, but it's very skinny. So that's why you've seen a lot of applications added to surface microservices and what have you, where the hypergraph is a much, much thicker protocol, which allows us to create a lot of that application layer services in the actual protocol itself. So application layer, which does slow down the internet, is much, much skinnier. And it will be more microservices that you're familiar with in the crypto blockchain world than perhaps you'd see in the kind of regular. That's the thing.
With the extra hops that you're adding as well, that just provides the opportunity for discrepancies to come in, which is another 10%, which is just accepted losses, which is obviously the person who eats last is the publisher, who has to generally swallow that. So yeah, not really transferring that value from the advertiser to the publisher very well.
And if the discrepancy is 10% over 340 billion, you're talking about $34 billion, which is kind of obscene. It's just decisioned at such a low level that no one really thinks about the macro impact of those decisions, but they are considerable.
Absolutely. So those being the problems with the legacy system, we set off building Alkimi Exchange with the following design goals in mind. The first was to provide end-to-end transparency and auditability, to prevent ad frauds, to reduce transaction fees, provide instant reconciliation, and increased transactional capacity. We've already spoken about how Alkimi would provide end-to-end transparency and auditability. Everything is going to be on the hypergraph. We are building on Constellation's hypergraph, which means that the transactions are going to be captured on the blockchain, ensuring that once the transactions have been validated by a network of decentralized nodes and captured on the blockchain, it is impossible to modify any data. So that would provide, and all of that data is available for the publishers and advertisers to view, audit, and all of that would be available programmatically as well. So they can pull in any transaction, look at a set of transactions that are related to each other, and then determine whether a certain advertiser actually won the auction or not, and how much they paid in order to win that particular auction. So that complete transparency and auditability is provided by Alkimi Exchange. The use of custom consensus, a feature that Constellation's hypergraph provides, would help us in preventing ad frauds. How that is done is by using the system of decentralized nodes, the network of decentralized nodes, to actually run through checks, which would help us determine whether a user has actually viewed an ad or not. And once that verification has been done, it's then notarized on the blockchain. Also, reduce transaction fees. The hypergraph provides us with a feeless network, which means that we can greatly reduce the transaction fees that are paid by advertisers. So it's 1.5% for the advertisers and 1.5% for the publishers, which is a 10x reduction on what they are currently seeing. Instant reconciliation. With the use of custom consensus, we can build all of the reconciliation into the state channel, which means that people, there's absolutely no delay in reconciling what needs to happen. All the reporting mechanisms is instantly completed. Transactional capacity, again, we've spoken about this, where hypergraph allows us to horizontally scale as per our bandwidth requirements, and that will provide us with the transactional capacity to support the bid requests and the responses that are coming in from the publishers and the advertisers as well.
Yeah, I think what happens today is because of the cost of hosting infinite transactions in traditional systems, bid requests and bid responses are often throttled, which then stops advertisers from finding the cookies that are disappearing every day and will disappear in 2023 when Google depreciate them in browsers. So not only can we support advertisers and publishers surfacing and finding cookies as they decrease, because you can query our exchange as many times as you'd like to, it will also kind of allow us to support the future methods of targeting in a way that hasn't been supported to date, which again, it's just another one of the features of the hypergraph, but hugely impactful for the entire advertising industry, really.
I think it's worth pointing out that the hypergraph is the only blockchain, if you will, that would actually allow us to do this because of that infinite scalability. There's no way that we could build this on Ethereum, for example, because the blocks are too slow and also they throttle with more capacity. So yeah.
Absolutely. For us to be able to conduct the auction and render the ad within a fraction of a second is virtually impossible on any other blockchain network. And you spoke about the use of cloud infrastructure. Yeah. It's something that that's so important, isn't it? Because all of our state channel would run, the custom consensus would run on decentralized nodes, which means that we have the processing power and the rewards are going to be paid out to the network, the node operators. So there's a complete cycle where they provide us with the processing power and they are rewarded for the processing power.
Yeah, so if you hold an ads token, you are essentially supporting the trading of ads all over the internet and metaverses and wherever the ads end up in the future.
Exactly. So being an ad exchange, there's absolutely no restriction as to who we can accept bid requests from. Whether that is from a publisher's website or from the metaverse is really, we can support anything as far as the ad exchange is concerned.
That's the beauty, I think, of OpenRTB. Using an existing standard that is interoperable with new ad formats really positions us to support the existing ad formats and then the future ad formats that, I mean, are growing every day. I think I saw today that Manchester City are building a virtual Etihad Stadium. They partnered with Sony. So again, two of the biggest brands in the world are taking metaverses very seriously, which I think they are in good company. So I think, yeah, it's going to be one of the mediums that really blows up in the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, so we move on to the demo now. The demo is split into 3 parts. The first one is about the Alkimi admin panel. And this is a panel that we've created to onboard publishers and DSPs. And it's also got a reporting dashboard. That's the first part of the demonstrating the Alkimi admin panel. The second part is about ad rendering, and we see how bid requests come into Alkimi Exchange, how the auction is conducted, and the response is sent back to the publisher for ad rendering. That's the second part of the demo. And the third part of the demo is really about the reporting dashboard and how reporting works on Alkimi Ad Exchange. Okay, so this is the Alkimi admin panel that has been created. And this is a panel, this admin dashboard provides us with the ability to onboard publishers and various DSPs or the demand side platforms. We first look at the DSPs. I'll come to the publishers after we've had a look at the DSPs itself. So what we can do is when we onboard a DSP, we specify the endpoint URL or where the bid request is sent by Alkimi Exchange, and that is where the DSP algorithm would run, and that would determine the content type, the publisher, and various other factors in order to determine how much the DSP intends to bid to show the ad to the user. This is the timeout field, where that's where we specify the timeout before which the DSP should actually respond back with their response, the bid response. QPS, this is currently left blank because, once we move on to Constellation's hypergraph, that is infinitely scalable. So we will not have any restrictions on the number of queries or the number of responses that the DSP can actually send back to Alkimi Ad Exchange. We now have a look at the publisher itself. And apart from the publisher name, we can specify the different languages, the languages that are supported. And these are the IAB categories. Now, what this allows us to do is the publisher can specify the category that their content actually falls under. And this has multiple categories and subcategories as defined by OpenRTB. So we can specify, say, for example, arts and entertainment. We can say whether that's books and literature, celebrity, fan, gossip, fine art, humor, various other categories and subcategories as defined by OpenRTB. We can also specify the DSPs who will receive the bid request that's sent by this publisher. So once we create the DSPs, once we onboard the DSPs using the DSP onboarding panel, we can then specify, we create a mapping between each publisher and the DSPs. So only those DSPs who are specified here will receive the bid request from this particular publisher. The domain, this field allows us to whitelist. This is an allow list of domains that are accepted by Alkimi Exchange from this publisher. So what happens is, if there is a domain that is not specified as part of this field, then bid requests from that domain are not accepted. There are various auction modes. Here we specify the first price and the second price auction mode. We'll see what this is in more detail once we move on to the ad rendering itself. But just wanted to highlight that there are two auction modes here, the first price and the second price. As part of publisher onboarding, we can also specify the house bidder mode. Now, a house bidder is a bidder that is internal to Alkimi Ad Exchange, and in the event of no valid bid response by any of the DSPs, say, for example, there is no valid response by DSPs 1, 2, and 3, then by enabling the house bidder mode, Alkimi Exchange would bid and be able to render one of our creatives on the publisher's website. So that's the mode of the house bidder. The token is something that's generated specific to the publisher, and that helps us identify the publisher. And the active flag is when that publisher needs to go active on Alkimi Ad Exchange itself. So we can actually schedule this and say, this publisher will go live on this particular date. Okay, so that's about the publisher and the DSP onboarding. One of the features that we are actually working on, this is currently under development, but I just wanted to throw this in the mix, is the feature of mini exchanges. Now, there might be a possibility where an existing ad exchange wants to work with Alkimi, and they want to gain the advantage of having all of their transactions on the blockchain. So what we can do is to treat them as a mini exchange while we accept bid requests from the publisher. We will then route that onto the mini exchange to conduct the auction and tell us what the winning bid response is. And all of that would go through a custom consensus as agreed by the mini exchange and Alkimi. And that would then be the bid request to the DSPs. All of that would be handled by the mini exchange, but we would be providing a thin layer of custom consensus and notarizing all of their transactions on the blockchain.
So would it be fair to say this mini exchange allows Alkimi to almost operate as that pre-bid server block before it's then formatted to the page?
Exactly.
Nice.
And would an example of this, I guess, be if publishers wanted their own demand to compete against the Alkimi demand? So say they have high bids of $30 or whatever it might be for their premium placement homepage, and then we're coming in and bidding against that. That makes it a fair auction, effectively.
Exactly.
And then they can also get all that reporting in the same dashboard.
They can get all the reporting in the same dashboard. So we'll look at the reporting in more detail, but it allows them to get complete transparency and auditability, and also access to all of our reporting dashboard.
Do I sign up?
The next feature that I wanted to show you is related to the house ads, where we can create ads of different sizes, and we can specify the creative that we want to use for the house bidder itself. So if there is a ad size of 300 by 250, and we want to show a house ad, this is where we specify all the creatives for the house bidder. Okay, so this can just be a creative that shows an ad for a charity, for example, where we, in the absence of any valid bidder, we can say, we as an Alkimi Exchange can say, this is how much we're going to pay for that particular ad to be displayed. And we can then work with charities, or we can show a banner ad that is specific to Alkimi. So this is where we can specify the creative that needs to be shown as part of the house bidding process. The next one that I wanted to show you is the admin panel, where we create different role-based access control. We currently have the admin role, the DSP, and the publisher, but we are working on this to extend this in order to specify more roles under the DSP and more roles under the publisher themselves. So this will undergo more changes. This is currently being worked upon, but just wanted to show you that there are multiple roles, and we will support role-based access control, and only those roles which have access to, say, the admin panel to onboard the publishers and the DSPs. Certain roles may have access to the reporting and so on. So that is going to be very clearly defined as well. Moving on to the reports, we'll see this in more detail, but we can specify different filtering mechanisms using which we can get the reports by publisher and by DSPs as well. So this is a quick run through of the Alkimi admin panel. Now I'm going to show you how the ad rendering works, how the bid requests come into Alkimi Ad Exchange, how the auctions are conducted and the ad is rendered. So we spoke about the client-side auction and the server-side auction. There are two different ways in which auctions can be conducted. For the purpose of this demo, we will only look at the client-side auction. And this is a test page that we've created in order to show you how ads are going to be rendered. So we've got a banner ad that is being displayed here, and a video ad as well. So these are the two ads that will be displayed to the user. And we've also got a bid configuration page, which is this page here, where we can simulate the functioning of the DSPs. And as I was showing you here in the test publisher, this is the publisher that we're using for the demonstration purpose. And we have 3 DSPs, 1, 2, and 3. And so we are able to show you how much each DSP is bidding for the banner and for the ad, which is this banner slot and this video slot. So for example, DSP 1 bids $0.55 for to show an ad on this slot, and $0.55 to show the video ad. So this is a very simple simulation of how the DSP works, but the DSP side is very, very complicated. It's far more complicated than this, where they look at what the content type is, whether the ad is, what is the size of the ad, and there are various categories that the DSPs would look into before they actually provide a bid. So for the purpose of this first demo, let me show you a bid request. So this is how the bid request would look. And just copy this onto a JSON formatter. And as part of the bid request, the publisher can specify what is the floor bid price, which is the absolute minimum that they would accept as a bid response. So any response that is less than $0.5 in this example would not be considered. So this particular bid request is for a banner type, and the floor bid price is 0.5. We specify the height and the width there, and the bid ID. So this is typically how your bid request would look. And this is the request for the video ad as well. So when we specify here, this is 0.55, 0.65, and 7.5 for DSPs 1, 2, and 3, all of which are over the floor bid price of 0.5. So when I refresh the page for those values, I copy the response. So here we see that the winning response is $0.75 and 0.75 for video as well. This is for the banner, and that's for the video. And this specifies the image source, which means that this is the banner that needs to be shown to the user. If I were to go back here and show you, if I refresh the page once more, you see that the ad, the banner shows bidder 3, and the video also shows bidder number 3. This goes to show that bidder 3, which is a DSP ID 3 with 0.75, is the DSP which has won this auction, and hence their ad has been rendered to the user. I have to just give it one more go. I can change this to 0.85 and 0.85 just to change this. And once I refresh this page, this will then take effect, and you see bidder number 1 and bidder 1 here.
Yeah. Nice. Great.
Okay, and this is all about the first prize auction. This is what we've selected, which is why when we had, now what first prize auction is the person who's DSP 1 here bid 0.85, and as part of the first prize auction, this is the prize that the publisher will get. But if I were to select second prize auction here, save that, what would then happen is, even though DSP 1 wins the auction, they would pay 1 cent more than the next highest bid, which is 0.75. So their response, or the amount of money that they will pay, is 0.76 cents. And we can see that in action here. I copy the response, put that on the JSON formatter. You see here, the winning price is 0.76 for the banner and for the video, even though the winning bid was 0.85. So as part of second prize auction, the the amount of money that's charged, that DSP1 pays, is just 1 cent over the next highest bid, which is 0.75.
It's kind of exactly the way eBay works, right? Like if you're prepared to pay $100 for a pair of trainers, but the next highest bid is 85, you pay $86, right? So I think that has been favorable to advertisers, and there's been a lot of work with publishers to determine what the bid reduction is. And again, because we're going to provide them with more transparent reporting, they can then see how they can optimize floor prices to ensure they capture as much of that bid as possible from demand sources that are looking to win impressions on a particular site.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting as well because a lot of times if you're a publisher and you're using something like Google, they'll suggest prices that you should use, but obviously that is based on a very small sample size of data, and it's based on the fact that the winning bid is only 1 cent above the actual highest possible bid. So it means that you're not really actually optimizing towards the actual bids, you're just optimizing towards the results of those bids.
Exactly. And one of the biggest advantages of Alkimi is the business intelligence that you can gain from the data. So not only do you have transparency and auditability, but you can look at how much the bid price was and how many DSPs actually responded, what their response was, and how the publishers can actually tweak the floor bid price in order to meet the demand. And they can look at, did that change over time? What can they increase the floor bid price? For example, during the evenings, can they decrease it during the night? How can they play with all of that data in order to arrive at that sweet spot of what that floor bid price should be? And on the DSP side as well, how do they then bid in a way to win the most number of bids to ensure that their brand reaches the kind of people that they want to? That business intelligence is, I think, a key point.
It's huge, yeah. Absolutely huge.
And that, again, is the third category of value that we were talking about initially, where this is, we're not only reducing or we're not only eliminating the problem of lack of transparency and auditability, but we are enabling the DSPs and the publishers to use the data to make intelligent decisions. And that is a value add that goes beyond resolving the problems of the advertising ecosystem today.
Yeah, huge.
I think it will open up a lot of different buying strategies that just don't exist at the moment. They're quite blunt instruments in the way that they're implemented, because it is just buy at this price if you find this. So there's not really a lot that you can finesse within that. But obviously, if you then know what didn't win, who won where, all of those bits of information, you can tailor your strategy with multiple layers of intelligence within it, which is just completely different to how it exists now.
Less of a blunt instrument than it is at the moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The next feature that I wanted to demonstrate was, we'll change back to first price for now, and I'll show you how house creatives work. Now, as I was explaining before, Alkimi supports what we call a house bidder, where when there are no valid bids by DSPs, then instead of the publisher losing that ad spot, the opportunity to show an ad to the user, Alkimi would bid on that ad slot, and Alkimi would then show our ad or tell the publisher not to show an ad. So this is something that we will see now, where I have selected here house creative as the mode, and I'm going to change this to invalid bids. We know that the floor bid price is 0.5, so I'm just changing this to make them invalid. Right then. And so when we refresh this page, you will now see house creatives being shown as part of the bid request. So there you see, that's the house bid. That's the creative that is sent as part of the house bid. And this is a video that's just being shown as part of the house ad. If I were to show you how this looks.
And what would happen is it would go through each demand partner, and then it would essentially end up at the house ad at the bottom if nothing else got filled. But again, if you're having multiple hops or multiple auctions happen, the chance of that ad being shown, the house ad being shown at the time when the person is still on the page is pretty minimal. So by putting it all together within one platform, it means that there's more chance of the publisher, getting that subscription ad in front of a user who might actually subscribe to get behind the paywall or for any extra content or anything like that. So it just increases the power of that house ad by including it in the same system.
Absolutely. This is the response that Alkimi Exchange has provided as part of the house bid. So if you see here, the CPM is 0.5. And this was the floor bid price that was stated as part of the bid request. So what Alkimi have done is the Alkimi Ad Exchange has now said, we are going to bid for that bid request, for that ad slot, at the floor bid price in the absence of any of the DSPs who have a valid bid. So Alkimi Ad Exchange, the house bidder, has bid at 0.5, and that's the ad that is being shown for video. And you see this image source here. This is the house bid ad that is shown as part of the banner ad. Both have been have a response of $0.5 CPM. This can now be extended slightly, and what we can do is, in the absence of a DSP providing any valid response, we've currently shown how house creatives are shown. But if I were to select empty placeholders, what that would do is it would actually provide a response at the floor bid price, but it would instruct the publisher not to show ads. And this is the essence of the something for nothing program, where Alkimi Ad Exchange would not send the bid request to any of the DSPs, but we would, as part of our house bidding feature, respond to the publisher and then pay the publisher not to show ads. We're just going to see this feature in action, and then we're going to talk more about the business side of it. So just a page refresh shows us that there is no banner ad, there is no video. So if I were to show you how the response looks, copy that. Here you see, this is very similar to what we saw previously, which is a CPM of 0.5 for video and 0.5 for video and for banner. But what you see is previously we saw an image source, and the image source would actually show what it would link to the ad creative that needed to be shown as part of the house bid process. But here we have no image source, which means we are instructing the publisher not to show an ad, but we are sending a response at the floor bid price, which means the publisher is guaranteed the floor bid price for that particular ad slot, but they don't have to do any work in order to show any ad to the user at all.
That's going to help prevent those really spammy ads that people don't like on the page, the belly fat ads or whatever, that basically never really get clicked on, but someone's getting paid, and it's not the publisher getting paid very much for it.
Yeah, it's slowing down the page load, it's a potential leak of your data, it's just a necessary evil. So we want to make it less necessary, basically, with something for nothing program. So the fact that you've seen it live, I hope you'll get very excited about how close this is to coming to fruition, and got a lot of publishers that are very excited about using this to improve page load times, clean up their pages, kind of have fewer leaks to intermediaries that aren't helping their revenue efforts at all.
Absolutely. It's a complete game changer,
Yeah.
really.
It really is kind of nuts.
I'm going to show you quickly how our data looks.
This UI is also so much better than any UI that I've ever had to use whilst working in programmatic advertising. So it's also a big win for the in-house teams.
So here we see the kind of data that we have surfaced, and for each publisher, we can see how many bid requests were sent to the DSPs, how many bid requests they respond, how many bid responses came from each of the DSPs. And currently we are doing this on a 1 hour snapshot, but that can be reduced as well. That's something that we're working towards. And we can also see what is the amount of money that the revenue that the publisher got from each of these DSPs. You see a few blank DSPs, but that was invalid data that was used for some of our testing, so please ignore that. But you see the number of wins per DSP during that period of time. You see the impression count, the number of requests, wins, and revenue. All of this can be surfaced. We can create different kinds of visual reports that are then provided to the publishers and the DSPs themselves. Quickly showing you what the DSP report or the data could look like. Leave that blank so that you see for every DSP, the number of impressions that were delivered for that DSP or the advertiser, the number of requests, the number of wins, and the spending. Mm-hmm. So we can provide more such information as well. And this is something that we are working towards, where there's the raw report here, but this is currently being worked on during this sprint, where we provide the DSPs and the publishers the ability to see the raw data, whether they are bid requests or bid responses. What that would do is each of these parties, the publishers and the DSPs, can just copy that raw data and put that through a hashing machine and generate the hash value of that raw data. And that hash value is what would be validated, once as part of our custom consensus. The bid request would go through a validation process by a network of decentralized nodes, obviously. And once that's been validated and certified, the hash value is captured on the blockchain. So what happens is the transaction that is validated and the hash value captured on the blockchain, and the details of those transactions are captured on our centralized database. So anybody can actually pull out the transactional data from the database and then compute the hash value of that transactional data, verify that against the hash value that's been recorded on the blockchain. So what that gives us is once the transactional data is validated, certified, signed, and the hash value is captured on the blockchain, it cannot be modified without being detected. This is what provides complete auditability. So you get transparency by using the reporting APIs, which will give you all the data that we just saw on the reporting dashboard. That is number one, to provide transparency. And auditability you get by capturing the hash value of the transaction on the blockchain and compare that with the hash value you generated using the raw data or the raw reports that you get from the reporting dashboard.
So it gives you like a single version of the truth rather than having my version of the truth, your version of the truth, and let's see if they actually match up. Just having that independent verification in the middle means that both sides can agree on what actually took place, which is, unbelievable.
Yeah, sounds obvious as well that should happen, but it doesn't. So is huge, really. I think that will save a lot of headaches for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And, all of this is available programmatically. So we don't see a situation where somebody has to actually enter the bid request ID and query the blockchain to get the hash value, and then go and query from the reporting dashboard all of the bid request IDs and the responses, and then do a manual computation of the hash value. None of that needs to happen manually. All of that is programmatic. And all of the code to achieve that will be made available to everybody. So it's just using the REST APIs, the reporting APIs that we expose, and that will then provide them with the ability to say, okay, for all of the transactions that took place today on this day, are the transactions that are captured on the centralized database, are they valid or not? All of that can be done programmatically, and that is the data that will create all of the reports and eventually the amount of money that needs to be paid by the DSP to the publisher. So that provides you end-to-end auditability.
Amazing. I mean, we're making improvements in pretty much every segment there, which obviously is going to make huge changes in terms of how people use it, how they transact, and how much revenue is actually passed back to the publisher, which ultimately will, help them pay for reporters and, seeking the truth, which is something that is currently being eroded quite a lot by the lack of ad revenue.
Yeah, so I think to summarize, we've got an amazing looking admin panel that's going to allow us to onboard publishers and DSPs, which is what we need for the exchange to exist. And the Something for Nothing program is pretty much ready to roll out with publishers, which are the first step on onboarding users that will actually use this day to day to trade ads.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think stay tuned for the next round of updates. No pressure, Chandru. I know you've just done one now, but yeah, Chandru and his team are continually working hell for leather on this. So yeah, please do stay tuned for more updates. And yeah, I guess until next time, I'm sure we'll speak to you some other formats, some other content we're doing, so pushing out a lot at the moment. But yeah, until next time, it's been great running through this with you all. And thank you, Chandru, and your team for working relentlessly on this. Yeah, it's awesome to see.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. And we're very excited to roll out the Something for Nothing program to show you all the updates that we have. And we'll continue to demonstrate all of our features in the coming few weeks. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.